Amrita Rajpal. I'm an early years specialist. I've been teaching for 22 years, but I've been learning my whole life. And that's why I have a company named Edu Learn Grow. I'm passionate about creating learning environments that are engaging, meaningful, and fun for children. I'm also a sports nutritionist, an avid traveler, an active Rotarian. I'm the territory head for the Early Childhood Association Mumbai. I'm the founder of EduLearn Grow and the co-founder of the ABCD show.
Hi, I'm Bela Kutwani, also known as Big B. Big for the size of my heart and B for Bela. A fun loving person with a great sense of humor and a passionate pickleball player. National Core Committee member of Early Childhood Association, founder and principal Cosmic Kids International, co-founder Puppet Maestros and the ABCD show, an educationist and a puppeteer who helps teachers to make learning fun for children by using puppets as a tool for teaching. My vision is to help parents and teachers raise emotionally intelligent children.
Welcome to season 2 of the ABCD show. First of all, we'd like to thank all our viewers for viewing our show, for being so committed to your own learning, and for showing us all your love. We are all geared up to get you the best educators to enhance your skills and to take your knowledge to new heights.
We have some really exciting basket of offerings. We have our ABCD shows where we will call experts to talk about their best practices. We will introduce you to some really value for money and effective products and services. And we have some incredible courses that will help you gain mastery in the subject.
Season 2 has a different format. We will have Ask Amrita and Bela on alternate Wednesdays, where you will ask us your questions on child development and we will revert. And on the other 2 Wednesdays, we will have ABCD shows with speakers or we'll showcase new products or new ideas and innovations.
So, parents and teachers, email us your questions on topics relating to early childhood development, education, and rearing on the ABCD Show 6 at gmail.com. And we will be back with the answers on Facebook Live. Waiting to see you soon.
So, hello everyone. I've really missed all of you. I wasn't here for the last show. I was suffering from COVID. Thankfully, I'm much better now. So, today's show is about parenting. Parenting, I think, is the only thing that we don't get a manual for or we can't get a degree in. So, today we're going to be speaking about how parenting can shape your child's future. We have with us today Kavita Garla. She's a multifaceted woman who loves to give her best to everything she does. She's a networking specialist par excellence and has to her credit countless people she has helped connect either for their personal reasons or professional growth. She blends the versatility of business development with coaching and mentoring. And she's also a model. She interviews people. She does so many other things and all with grace and professionalism. Her current venture, Passion and Purpose, is fueled by her above passions, and she is on a path of discovering different facets of her personality and making a difference to many, many more lives. So, Kavita always says that her relationship with her two boys is perfectly imperfect. She thinks the whole idea of motherhood is about unlearning and relearning, making mistakes and through trial and error. As her children grew up, she also grew up as a mother, gaining wisdom, experience along the way, including making mistakes, failing, and finally succeeding. And that's why she's here. So, in the span of a lifetime, we all have many relationships. For her, the most impactful and meaningful one has been that of being a mother to her boys. I also want to add here that Kavita and I were classmates in school, and it's wonderful to see her as a dynamic woman today. And we're really happy to have her on the ABCD show. So, Kavita, before we start,
Let me also welcome Kavita first. Welcome Kavita to the ABCD show. Really lovely to have you over here with us. And we'll have a lot of exchanging of ideas between us. Let's see what will help best to the audience.
Hey, thank you,
perfect.
Big B and Big A. So I'm going to call myself Big K now. So thank you
Wow.
for the warm welcome. Thank you.
Wonderful. So, before we start with this whole barrage of questions, tell us about your sons. What are they doing? What are their names? How old are they? So that there's a connect with everybody. Everyone knows where we all are and who we're
Yeah.
talking about.
Okay. For all of you who is watching today and don't know me, like Amrita said, my name is Kavita Garla. I have two boys. They're going to be 22 and 26 very soon. And it's been such a roller coaster of a journey with them, right? I feel as a parent, I grew up as a human being with them. And Amrita and I have had such wonderful conversations in the last few years, not only of about our children, but also how we as people have transformed in the last few years. And I think that's what has brought me into this show. My two kids today, the older one is in London. He has done his MSc in marketing and he is working for a startup there. The younger one, Vikram, is with us. He's going to be leaving for London in 2 months, and he's also going to be doing his MSc in strategic marketing in Imperial. And soon, yeah, I'll have an empty nest, but both my kids are going to be happy doing what they've always wanted to do. And I'm so excited today to share my journey. Bela and Amrita, thank you so much for inviting me. I was telling Amrita that I'm not an expert, but she said, no, you are an expert. You've been a mom for 26 years. So if that makes you an expert, I'm going to
Yes.
be an expert.
Very true.
Is there
Yes,
something like being an expert as a parent? I want to invite everyone else to answer. I don't think anyone can be an expert. No, I think we're all just work in progress.
and we learn from our mistakes as well. So it's perfectly
Yeah.
fine.
Yes, absolutely. And I think parenthood doesn't come with a manual. And even if it did, it's one manual is not going to suit all of us, right? Because
It's
we
not
each,
a
yeah,
one
one
size fit
size
all attitude. Yes.
absolutely, absolutely. And Amrita and I have grown up together, and there are so many people in the audience like Sandhya. We all grew up together, and we are all such different individuals. And we all grew up in the same school, went to the same college. Literally, I think we all did commerce, but we all ended up doing so many different things and ended up as different individuals. And that's what I think parenting is all about: finding that unique individual in your child and helping them grow. So.
Very true. So that brings us to communication with your children. So I would like to say that some people talk very differently with their children. Some are very sweet, some are tolerant, some are very brash. And do you think this affects the child and in their upbringing and their personalities when they grow up as an adult? So what is your take on that?
Bela, this is a story that I always, have not felt ashamed to share. I think one of the biggest mistakes I feel that I did was not talking or communicating with my children properly. I was mean, I was angry, I was rude, I was yelling at them all the time. I did everything that probably a mother should not do. But then I also know that speaking to other parents, they've also done this mistake. And if you ask me, does it matter? Most definitely it matters. They say that the first 7 years of a child's upbringing is driven by emotion and not logic. Okay. And those are the years when parents have just become a parent and they do not know how to do things. So we lose it sometimes, right? And as children, everything they do, they listen to, they replicate is based on emotion. So if you're parenting them with anger, frustration, negative comments, etc., now that's what gets ingrained in them. When they're constantly corrected, reprimanded, put down, they stop believing in themselves, and they start believing in all the things that we are telling them as parents, as teachers, as friends. And children are, what are they at the end of the day? Just constantly seeking our approval, right? And we as parents are constantly not giving them that. And that's something that I learned the hard way, because I thought that was the way parents should be. We should be strict, we should tell them when they're wrong, and that's the only thing I kept telling my children. Children already have, I'm sure both of you are experts on this, they already have very harsh inner voices. And they already tell themselves that they're pretty bad pretty easily, because they go to school, they play with friends, teachers tell them you're not fast enough, do your homework, clean up. They're being constantly told these things, and then they come home and they hear it from their parents also. Is it right? Absolutely not. See, as parents, especially mothers, we tend to spend a lot more time with our children. We should become more aware of what and how we are speaking to our children. Bottom line is, what they think of themselves is significantly influenced by how they think their parents view them. We are their first teachers, their role models, their guides. Your voice on the outside, whether it is gentle and kind, empathetic and warm, harsh, rude, becomes a big part of their inner voice. Right? That's how they start speaking to themselves, because they're constantly hearing this from the outside. That's why I say the way we talk to our children becomes their inner voice. Our external voice is their internal voice. They treat themselves the way they have been treated. So yes, Bela, it's very, very important the way we talk to our children, and adult personalities do develop in early childhood. And that research shows, and both of you know that more than me. I learned it through my experience. I think in order for them to grow up to be confident individuals with high self-esteem, positive self-talk, especially from parents, it becomes very, very important. I think we are the ones who can make them feel worthy, feel loved, feel wanted, feel heard. So if there's one thing parents can do today listening to the show, is start journaling what they speak to their child in a day. And they will realize how many negative things they say versus positive things. We're always correcting them. So I request all the parents on the show, create a journal from today, start writing the conversations you have with your children.
I think that's a lovely idea. Lovely idea to print out.
Kavita was just reading that in one little town in South America, they did this research, and they recorded how many times a parent gave instructions or reprimanded their children. And it was, guess how many? Can I have it in the chat box?
In a day?
In an hour.
Oh my God.
Can I have someone tell me in the chat box, how many do you think instructions or reprimands that a parent gives a child in an hour? 15, I can see from Abhishek. Anyone else? 15, 20?
10.
60 instructions or reprimands is the average that a parent gives. Sit here, don't wipe your nose, use the napkin, go to the bathroom, 60 in 1 hour.
I am shocked. I don't think I was that bad. So that's the only nice thing.
Did you do the journal at that time? Do you know?
No. Okay. No, 60 is a lot. I don't think, maybe I did not spend that much time with my kids is what I'm thinking.
Okay. Anyway, the point is it's an average of 60.
Yes, agree. It's too much.
It's bad. Yeah. All right. Yeah, but true. Bela, you have anything to say about self-talk?
No, I think she's covered more or less everything. Not really much. I think she's covered more or less everything. And the journaling was a very good idea, which I liked. I think every parent should definitely look into journaling, what they're speaking to the child, how they're speaking to the child. And especially more than even just speaking, how the child feels about what you're speaking to them. The feelings are to be addressed, which is very, very important. That is what I feel right now.
I totally agree. There's a self-talk is something which you start telling yourself. You know, people talk to you and then you talk to yourself. So there are two conversations happening. One conversation saying, you know what, you're a fool. And there's another conversation validating, yes, I'm a fool. And then how do you behave? I'm a fool.
Yeah. You start believing everything you hear.
Start believing, you act, and you are, and that's what it is. So when you want a happy child, you tell them you're happy, you're loved, you're wanted.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's the next thing that, I wanted to talk about, what do children want from us the most?
That was my question right now. I was coming to that. We have so many expectations from children, but do they really have expectations from parents? What are their expectations?
I think I can only speak from my experience and knowing some of the mothers and having all these conversations. I think a lot of parents will do anything for their kids except let them be themselves, right? We will do anything, but we will never let them be who they are. Like you said, we're always correcting, reprimanding. How often do we accept our children for who they are and not who we want them to be? One thing that we as parents can do immediately to change how we feel again about them is to start accepting. When you start journaling, you'll realize how many things you can start accepting and not correcting. Parent the child you have, not the child you wish you had. And that's something I think many of us as parents do. As soon as we come to know we are pregnant, what do? We start reading. And the first book, I don't know about you all, one of the books in America, which is very popular, is What to Expect When You're Expecting. And the next book was What to Expect When Your Child is the first year. So everything is about setting expectations. And what happens? Nobody is going to meet your expectations. We ourselves can't meet other people's expectations. How do you expect an infant to know that at 6 months they're supposed to sleep on their own, at 1 year they're supposed to walk, they talk, and when they don't do it, what happens? We lose it, right? Disappointments. And I think this is the biggest lesson I have learned in my parenting journey. When my children were born, I thought, I thought they'll be great at sports. And I thought, my younger one, he was always tall for his age. Even now he's 6'2". So even when he was 1 year, I used to treat him like he was a 2-year-old. I did not accept him as a 1-year-old, and so did his friends. So we go to a party, he'll be with all his age group. But the only person child they would complain about was Aditya. And I used to think, why? Because he looks like a 2-year-old. So why is he behaving like a 1-year-old? I had to keep reminding the other mothers that he's the same age as your child. So the expectation should be the same, but it never happened. So what happened is I also started expecting him to behave like a 2-year-old, then a 3-year-old, then a 4-year-old. And I feel somewhere I didn't let my child be the age he should be, make the mistakes, and let him be okay with those mistakes. We as parents should learn to accept our children more. We reject what we don't want to accept or see in our kids. We force them to take up everything in sight, right? Peer pressure. How many of us have not given to that? Our neighbors' kids are in football, so why don't you try it? Somebody is doing art, you should do it. Music, cooking, everything. Now there's no differentiation between boys and girls, right? We put them into everything. But while it is good to expose them to so many things, I think we really need to figure out what is their aptitude. Do they really want to learn cooking or music? Like my older son, because he was tall, I lived in the US and everybody said, put him in basketball, he'll excel. And basketball is big in America. And I forced him to go and he sucked at it. And he said, why are you torturing me like this? I don't want to play basketball. I want to play football. After years of trying, I had to move him to football. I was very dejected. As a mother, I said, couldn't you do this much for me? You're so tall, you could have played well. No, he couldn't. I think as parents, from childhood to adulthood, we feel as parents, we can keep rejecting who they are and making them who we want them to be, especially the first child. I don't know, Amrita, if you will agree with me, but I think the first child bears the brunt of all these mistakes of non-acceptance and rejection. uh, because when it comes to second child, we are okay with anything. Okay, he doesn't like basketball. Okay, I've gone through it once with the first one, leave it. But with the first child, we put a lot more pressure. And so that's why I apologize to Aditya more than I do Vikram, because I think I have put so much expectations on him that really, like I said, I've never let him grow up to be the child. Maybe he could have been. Of course, he's okay now, but still, I think I could have been a better mother in those ways.
And then parents want to live
Your
their dreams
question,
through their child, you know, that's what happens at times.
Sorry.
but to answer your question, sorry, Bela,
Yeah, I was
repeat.
saying sometimes parents try and live their dreams through their child.
Yes.
So they want the child to do whatever they have not done in their life. They want their child to try and achieve those things that they wanted to achieve in life.
Absolutely. I think once we
Yeah.
give up on those dreams, right, of wanting to make them who that ideal picture we have, I think you will see that an individual emerges that you never thought was there. And they will bring out their own unique talents and things that they are blessed with comes out, which is natural to them. And that's what we need to hone. Now, when I'm doing passion and purpose, right, I'm interviewing a lot of people. And all these people who are successful, who are following their passion, are people whose parents or their mentors have shown them the mirror and said, this is what you're good at, why don't you follow it? Or at a young age, parents have let them free to say, okay, follow what your heart tells you, and it's okay if you don't succeed. So yeah, Amrita, you have to answer the
But
question.
you know, my question, yeah, I have to answer your question. You know, Kavita, I am the middle child of three, and my brother was intensely intelligent.
Yes.
He was very, very bright, always doing very well, and good at math and good at everything. And my sister, younger one, was very naughty and cheeky. So she was everyone's pet. I think as the middle child, when you say it was different for you as the elder one gets all the brunt, I think I got all the brunt because, you know, you're academically stable and you're whatever, but you're not cheeky and whatever. You're not overly bright. So I think somewhere for me, I felt I was very shortchanged in this whole relationship of parenting. But I think everyone has their own experience. But
Absolutely.
but I also want to tell you, you know, as we grow, we realize that so many things, so many times, parents do things um, with a different motive, or we misunderstand. So it's very, you have to be very mindful as a parent at what is coming across to your child. So I'm going to tell you about this incident when I was a child, and I wasn't even very young. I must have been about 13 years old, and we'd all gone for this wedding, family wedding, and everyone's mothers, all my aunts were feeding all their children, and we'd all put mehndi on our hands. And my mother was somewhere else, and I was so disturbed that my mother doesn't love me. You know, she's not available because every other mother is feeding their child, and my mother isn't bothered. I also have mehndi on my hands, and I would want to be pampered. I came to know a few years ago that, you know, at that wedding, the cook became sick or something like that. And my mother went in and saved the day over
Wow.
there. And she was a very good cook. And she went over there and she started cooking. Now, the last thing on her mind would be
Feeding
whether
you.
daughter has got me. But we also, you know, have different expectations. But I think it's very important to have that connect and communicate that, you know, I am going to be doing this. And if you need me, I'm available, but I'm like this. We just take our children for granted, I think, many times.
Yeah,
We
because
think they're hearing things that we have not said.
yeah. And we think they're always there and they're always forgive. And do we really need to speak? So I'll talk about that. Communication and having conversations is so important with your children. Absolutely. And I remember you as the second, being in the middle, right? We spoke about that a lot in college and school. So I knew you would disagree with the first child syndrome. You know, but if my sister is here on the show, I mean, growing up, I always felt that, you know, my parents were partial to her and they were nicer to her. And she disagrees with me, but somewhere I feel I grew up with that lack of confidence, because somewhere I felt she was always better at me than everything and in everything. Now, of course, we don't think like that, but I think all these are the things that we grow up with and we're not even aware. And I don't think my parents ever did anything purposely, like you said, right? Because those days we never had conversations. I just felt like that. I never told my mom and dad, you're not showing me love, but I felt like that. So
Like that brings me to the next question for you, Kavita. It says, we normally talk about loving our children unconditionally, but do we really do it? So that's the next question to you.
So, Bela, we should, right? We all want unconditional love. We put up nice quotes and posts about
Right.
unconditional love. But the only thing that gives unconditional love, Amrita will agree with me, is the dog. That's
Sweet.
the one.
I'll also agree with that.
I'm in total love with my dog.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's a very difficult concept, unconditional love. But does it exist? I think it does, and we should strive at it. We should work at it. See, I was an expert at loving my children, but loving them very, very, very conditionally. Let me put it that way. They say children have a moral right to be loved. See, I think I want to add that children have a moral right to be loved unconditionally. I have let my children down in the love department. I used to. I loved my kids, but I think I should not have put so many conditions on my love for them. Come in top 10, play all the different sports, clean up your room, make good friends, eat your food. I don't know. Everything was a condition, right? I mean, most of you as parents will agree that's what we do with our kids, because we think if we do that, we are disciplining them. But absolutely, I do not agree with that. And for me personally, I want to share that the reason that I could not love them unconditionally was not their fault. It was really my fault. I did not love myself unconditionally. See, I think many of us as parents, we bring our own baggage into the relationship when we become parents. And I did a lot of that. It was only when my children were in 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, right, is when I started realizing all the things that I was doing wrong. And the amount of things I blamed on my children and my family was actually my fault. I needed to make a change to who I was. I needed to love myself. I needed to believe in myself. So basically, I grew up a child with low self esteem. And so when I had my own kids and I was doing the same thing to them, I was making them grow up with no confidence, no self esteem, with negative reinforcements. I decided I have to change my life. We are human, we all make mistakes. And I learned that in order to give my child the love and acceptance he deserves, I have to do it for myself too. And this realization changed not only my relationship with myself and my family, my two children, my friends, my entire life started changing. Because, like they say, you see, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I think Amrita will also agree, when you start growing inside, right, is only when then you can be a better person on the outside for your children, for your spouse, anybody. See, kids should know that we care for them just because of who they are, not because what they do. Punishments, rewards, if done too much, may tell them that they have to earn our love. And that's, again, a very difficult concept for me to digest now. But for me, then it was all about making them earn my love. Okay, you did well in school, you got your report card today. Yes, your teacher said good things, you have my love. How many of us don't do that? We do it. Even today, when we have our different relationships, if somebody does something that makes you happy, you love them unconditionally. So, Bela, to your question, do we love our children unconditionally? We don't, but we have to work at it. Like everything else in parenting, it's a work in progress, and the effort has to come in from the parents, because children do not have these filters. We put these filters into them about earning love. What do they do with these things, right? They take it outside to the world. That's how probably they'll have relationship with their friends and their girlfriend or wife or spouse when they grow up. I think expectation is the root of all heartache, right?
I would
If you
just say
just
one
give up
line, expectations lead to disappointments. Very, very
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They put too much pressure. And I think that's why we're not able to give love unconditionally. It becomes conditional because of those damn expectations that we have with everything. We stop loving them unconditionally, and conditional loving becomes a habit. Accepting them for who they are is the beginning of unconditional love. Like we said previously, right? Unconditional love equals acceptance. And there are so many ways to express love to our children. And that's another thing we need to journal, I feel. In a day, how many times do you show love to your children? Even just a smile, a hug, and just being present for the moment. If they're talking to you and you are looking at your cell phone, that shows them that they are not important to you. And I know you guys at ABCD talk about all this a lot. Hug them, laugh, tell jokes. I mean, I never laughed with my kids. I'll be very honest. Very rarely did we share a moment of laughter. And this came to light recently. Three of us were having lunch and we shared a joke, and all of us, three of us were laughing. And Vikram, my youngest one, looked at us and said, "Gosh, we never hear laughter in this house." And I felt really sad. I said, that's the reality. We don't laugh enough. So bring laughter, love, all these positive emotions into your household. And I think even fathers are responsible for that, not just mothers. So as parents, if we can bring all these positive emotions into our child's life, I think we'll just change everything about them.
I think in India, you don't marry the husband, you marry the family. So if you're living in the family, I think the whole family has to contribute. And you have to be the one who's, because it's your child. So the
Yes.
responsibility is yours
Yes.
to get the love and the laughter and whatever is in your house. Very rightly said.
And I think Amrita, for me, I lived in the US, so we were just four of us, and I think the pressure was a lot because as a mother, you're taking care of two kids, you're doing everything, and that ends up making you at the end of the day tired, bitter, angry. So, but here I think in India it's a different concept. You have your in-laws with you, you have maids, you have servants. I don't know if that helps because I never brought up my children in that environment. Maybe you can share or somebody can talk about it, if that makes a difference to a mother's personality, having help in the house.
I don't know, because so many times I've heard of stories where there's a mother-in-law who wants to give the child something to eat, and the daughter-in-law, the mother doesn't want that happening. So I think basically it's not about being alone or being with other people. The whole idea is to be aligned with everyone in the house on what is your parenting. How are you going to be parenting this child? How is this child going to be looked after by the whole family?
Correct.
What have you thought of for this child? Are we looking at a child being healthy, and what is health? Is there a definition for health? Is it different for you? Is it different for me? So we need to align ourselves before we get, the child involved. So many times we see people just bickering,
Yes.
Parents bickering, mother-in-law, daughter-in-law not agreeing. I mean, what is this child going to do? He knows it's okay to bicker.
No, I think these things that we do wrong on an ongoing basis we are the role models for our children, right? And even if you live with your in-laws, your grandparents, everybody becomes a role model in the house. We become their first teachers. The best kind of parent you can be is to lead by example. And it's about intentional, conscious parenting. And I think the new age parents may be a better equipped at this because they work on themselves. And I think, at least for me, I feel maybe if my husband and I had crucial conversations about what kind of parents we want to be, how do we want to raise our child? What should be bedtime? What is curfew? What does a timeout mean? Okay, what kind of punishments do you want to give? Do you want to take out TV privileges? But most of the times, parents themselves disagree on how to bring up a child in front of the child. So what happens?
Yeah.
That I think that's the biggest mistake that parents make. I think as soon as parents know they're expecting a child, they need to spend at least quality time with each other, figuring out what kind of parents they want to be. What do they want out of this relationship with their child? I'm sure, Amrita, maybe you or Bela have more to add on this, but would love to hear your point of view on this.
I agree. Bela, what do you have to say? I really agree that parenting has to be aligned.
Yes,
with
and the
everyone.
ground rules can be set, from by consulting each other. Ground rules can be set. These are the expectations that we'll allow, what we are not going to allow, and we should be in sync with each other. That's very important.
I think especially in the teenage years, right, is when your children are really watching you. They see how you handle stress. They also watch how you treat people. They observe how you feel with your feelings, deal with your feelings. They soak in all the information. They're like sponges. And this is when their emotional intelligence is being formed. So we have to be really, really careful how we are handling ourselves. And are we saying one thing and doing one thing? Are we telling them to be kind, but we are rude? Are we telling them to be generous, but we are not giving somebody the right amount of money? They see us haggling with the vegetable person, and we are telling them you should be kind to the poor people. So what kind of messaging are we giving? Are we complementing what we are doing with what we are telling our children, or are we poles apart? So this is what kids pick up from us. We are definitely our children's first role models, and more attention should be given to who we are and how we are coming across to our kids.
And rightly said, Anita Bhutani is saying, I believe if we explain why we impose certain rules, the child will understand it better, which is very true. Yes, good point, Anita. Totally agree with you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So the next question is, what according to you is the ABC of parenting?
Okay,
So,
since this is the ABCD show, I'm going to say ABCD. So I've come up with my own acronym. So A is for appreciate or praise. Praise given continuously is constant feedback to the child as to how they're doing. It's very uplifting, but we forget to do it. Again, we praise conditionally. Only when they do something very good, if they come first in class, is when we praise. But can we find 10 things to praise our child with every day? Praise should be very enthusiastic, energetic. By using praise, you're showing your child how to think, talk positively about themselves also. It goes back to the inner dialogue, right? By when we appreciate them, they appreciate themselves. They start feeling good. You can just see some of the times when you've told your children, wow, you did a great job. I love the way you put away your toys. You were so organized. And that beaming smile on their face. I can still remember the times when I praise my children. I can see that glow in their eyes and saying, I did something to make mommy happy today. So can we do that more often? So for me, A is about appreciating your child. Select a particular thing they have done that day, a behavior, anything, and praise effusively, and keep stating what they did right. Don't just state the activity. So if they put away, say, their toys, don't just say, I like the way you put away your toys, you did a great job. Say, I like the way you organized it. I like the way you thought, your thought process. So, bring about a dialogue and a conversation with them about why you're praising them. Why is very important, not just telling them you're very good. Why are you very good? And I think along with praise, a gentle touch, ruffling their hair, putting your arm around them, just smiling, eye contact. I think all this makes a difference to a child's personality, their energy. Another thing to journal is, how many times do you praise your child in a day, and for what?
also very important, I feel at this point to add is, you're praising the behavior of the child.
Yes.
You're not praising the child,
No.
because that child is the way the child is, and however the child is acceptable.
Yes.
So we're praising behavior, and
Yes.
we're sort of reinforcing good behavior.
Yes, because I think children should be praised for their efforts.
Right.
For their concentration, the whole process they use, and not for their abilities and achievements in general. It should be all the stuff that goes behind. I think this helps them also grow with a growth mindset. What can I do better next time? That should also be something that we inculcate in them. And you should never be controlling, right? And you should never use it as a comparison. I think you did better than your brother today, or I think you beat your friend, and that's why I think, don't compare. Just praise them. That's it. And they will do the same for somebody else. So for me, A is about appreciating, about praising. The second part, B, is very important for me, especially because I have grown kids. Balancing the role of a mother or a father and a friend. I think that is so important in today's world. Uh, is it possible to be a parent and a friend to your child? Uh, I think yes. I have managed it. A friend has multitude of roles from a mother has a multitude of roles from a nurturer to a disciplinarian. And can she be a friend? Absolutely, she can be a friend. You just need to find a way to achieve the balance. Let your children know that they can always come to you with any problem, question, situation, and you will listen to them without judging them. You will just listen to them with open ears and an open heart and an open mind. That
Is she
develops the,
frozen, or do I feel she's frozen?
No, she's not frozen.
not yet. Okay. So I think when we develop that trust between the parent and child, not to be judgmental, not to make statements about their behavior, accept, embrace them, and like all the other things we said, when we give them unconditional love, when we accept them, you are actually becoming their friend. Because as when we are, how was our relationship with our friends? We accept them for who they are, right? We do not judge them. If they're going through a hard time, what do? We listen. We listen to understand. We listen and ask better questions. So, but at the same time, I think it's very important for them to know that it's a thin line. Let them know that your role in their lives, first and foremost, is that of their mother, not their friend. That comes second. And if they break the rules, they will suffer consequences. And as parents, I think we should be less rigid and more flexible. Um, some of the things that my older one has done, I can't even mention here. I can speak about anything. I can't. But actually, all the mistakes that he made me realize I have to develop new muscle to be able to deal with all these things. I've gone to every principal's office in every school. In Jain College, every 5 years, my husband and I have walked into the principal's office at some time or the other and signed a letter saying that this behavior will not repeat. And if it does, he will be expelled from college. All those things really teach you how to develop patience, tolerance, and how to understand and why they're going through what they're going through. It's very important to be their friend. If your children are younger, you might disagree with me and say, no, we should not be friends. We should be the parent. No, start developing your friendship right now. I'm telling you, when they grow older, with my kids today, I'm more a friend than a mother. They can call me and tell me anything about anything, and they know that I will not be judging them. And if I have to help them, I'll help them. Unconditionally, I'll help them. So please, all of you, B is about balancing the act of mother, father, and friend. Very important.
Yes, totally agree with you.
And believe me, if we do that, they'll be better parents to their children.
Sanjay Aswani says you need to be friends with boundaries.
Yeah, that's the boundary. You tell them, friend,
Yes.
mother comes first, second comes friendship. But yet your door should always be open to them. They should know that. That's very important. Especially as they grow older in their teenage years is when they'll get into trouble. Believe me, every child will get into their own kind of trouble. And they should know that you should be the first person they should go to and not a third party. My son has done that. And that's when I realized, shit, I have not kept my doors open for him. He's gone to some other person for help. And luckily that person knew me and told me. If I didn't know and if it was a bad influence, his life could have been ruined. So, okay, I'm sorry. I love this topic, so I'm going to talk a lot. So okay, I hope the viewers are not bored with my monologue.
Nobody is bored.
Okay. The C is for communication, more importantly, conversations. When you open the door, like we are saying we should also open the door for two-way conversations. Conversations help children express their thoughts, get what they need, resolve conflicts, and more importantly, ask for help from you when they need it. Children need many opportunities to talk with each other, with family, with their siblings. Please know and let them know that the doors are open for these conversations. Every once in a while, ask your children how they're feeling, because especially boys will not talk about their feeling, but I think we should have those crucial conversations to keep the doors open. I think also to design spaces and activities that offer opportunities for children to talk together about important things in their life. Ask questions, questions that are not requiring yes or no answers. I want you to ask questions which have open-ended answers, like, what do you think? How do you feel about this? Help me understand. Tell me about it. What do you think of what happened? Could it have been done differently? Could I have been a better mother? What will happen next? So, keep those questions where they have to think and answer. Again, growth mindset. They start thinking that my mom is not just going to ask me yes or no. She's going to ask me questions where I have to give the right answers and why I did something I did. Conversations are about listening skills. Carefully comment on their ideas rather than just waiting to state your agenda. If they're sharing an idea with you, listen to what their idea is. Talk about it. Don't just say, no, I don't think so. This is my idea. I think we should do it this way, which we do as parents. If your children are part of the plan, they will carry it out. Even the smallest of things, if you include your children, have a conversation. Even if you're going on a vacation, if you're looking at hotels, grab your children, tell them these are the different options we have. What do you all think? Where should we stay? Will they be more excited to come with you? Absolutely.
Definitely.
And they'll be more excited to pack. They'll be more excited. They'll help you with all the chores needed. Children just need our presence, not our presence. That's what I firmly believe. And our presence is having conversations with them. Okay, the last one is D, which some people might not agree. But for me, I feel I am the person I am today because of my father's upbringing of discipline and manners. Discipline for me is very important for children. It's not about rules, regulations, and obedience or punishment. The Latin origin of the word discipline is to teach. Disciplining your child means teaching them responsible and accountable behavior, that they are themselves are accountable for what they're doing, not the parents, not the siblings, not their friends. See, the ultimate aim of discipline is to encourage the child to learn to manage both their feelings and their behavior. Might be a little too deep, but that's what it does. In other words, this discipline allows children to develop self-discipline, helps them become emotionally and socially mature adults. The emotional intelligence, Bela, you were talking about, comes through, I feel, through discipline. Good manners. I know Amrita and I went to Sapphires and there are some people from there. And good manners was such an important part of our upbringing, from the way we sat in a chair, the way we clapped, the way we said thank you, please. All this is ingrained in us.
Not can I?
Please, yes. Don't speak loudly. I remember, not Sister One, Sister, I forget. Anima. Don't speak loudly, speak with respect, respecting the older people in the house, seeking advice from our older generation, holding a door open for people. These are things that we have to teach our children. These are the intangibles that will give tangible results like you can't imagine. I can't tell you how many girls come up to me and say, Auntie, you've really brought up your boys so well. They really know how to treat women. And, and when I went to London this time, it was so hilarious. My son has 6 friends and all of them are girls. And conversations that I was having with him is their patterns of having periods. He knows each one's pattern. Who needs ice cream? Who needs a hot bag? Who needs which kind of pad? I said, what is this? He said, you are the one who said that I should, take care of, the women and the needs. So he said, I don't care. I know if Claudia is like this, she needs chocolate, that one doesn't. I said, okay. I said, I'm very proud of you, man. I said, wow. You've gone to the other extreme, but which is fine. So I bring up your children with discipline and manners. You will never, ever regret it. And discipline eventually leads them to the right path, helps them to be better individuals. And I think indiscipline really causes disorder and confusion in life and makes life miserable. Um, if ABCD is practiced, I think this will add to the legacy that we as parents leave to our children, because this goes on for generations. I don't know if you agree with me, but that's how I seriously feel about ABCD.
I totally agree with you, in fact. Very well. Appreciation, balance. Then the C was
Our conversations,
conversation and
need for
discipline. Superb.
discipline. Yes.
Excellent points.
Thank you.
Said by you.
Very nice.
So, do you have any final tips for the audience?
Yeah.
Do we answer any questions?
You want to answer questions
After
first? We
after
can
you
do
give
that.
us your final tips, or do you want to just give it, answer the questions and put your final tips in there?
Gosh, I hope I can answer the question. Otherwise, you two are experts are there. We can answer the
Yes.
questions. Maybe they must be tired of listening.
Sure. Let us
Nobody's
see the
ever tired.
questions.
Here, are you calling out the first question?
I've just seen one right now. How do we deal with super emotional daughters? Please give some hacks. This is by Pankaj Mishra.
Pankaj, I knew you would give me a difficult question. I think super emotional is me. So when my father, I always tell this joke, when 32 years ago, when we got married, my dad called my husband aside and he said, I just want to tell you one thing. I want to wish you all the best because my daughter is super emotional. I don't know how you're going to deal with her. All the best. Bye. I don't have daughters, but my sister does have daughters, and they both are super, super emotional. And to be honest, I look at my sister when they're having their emotional tantrums or whatever you call it, and I say, Rupa, God blessed me with two boys because I don't think I can handle this. I can only deal with boys and not with girls. But I think it requires a lot of patience to deal with somebody who's emotional. I think Pankaj, with emotional people, yeah, they're very touchy feely about what is right and what is wrong. So I think it's important to have conversations with your daughter when she is going through an emotional period. Let her vent, let her then calm down and talk to her again about why is she feeling the way she is. And as you as a father or a mother, can you make a difference? Can you do something differently so that she doesn't have this outburst again? It is going to be a lot of work on your part and a lot of patience, but I feel it can be worked, it can be done. But I don't know if Amrita, you have any response?
Yeah. Can I add to that, Pankaj?
Yes.
You know, Pankaj, what is a super emotional person? So first thing I want to get to that is, why is a person super emotional? When there's a wound and there's something raw over there, you know, that is when that person, and you pinch that wound or you touch it, something triggers and that person feels upset. Or that person, in the case of a wound, would feel hurt, but there is a wound somewhere.
Yeah.
So you need to find that wound. Your child is not super emotional. Your daughters are not super emotional. There is a wound somewhere. Find the wound. Find why they're feeling like that. Why are they feeling insecure? Why are they getting triggered? What is the trigger? And once you find that out, take responsibility. You're the parent, you know. And once you're the parent, you deal with it the way you have to deal with it. That's it. You take the actions that you have to. It's your child. You go that extra way.
Absolutely.
Don't call your child super emotional.
It's
That's
illegal.
not the way.
Yeah, it's
It's
illegal.
illegal.
And
Yeah.
I
We
feel even
don't
if
want
she's
to
crying
label
out,
people.
it's perfectly fine if she's crying. Let her emotions out. It's perfectly fine. So just
Find
handle
the
it and
trigger,
talk.
please.
Yes, talk to her about it.
And also, Pankaj, I want to say that maybe one more thing to look at is, are the parents also emotional? Okay, so many times they also, see sometimes they learn when the parents are having emotional reactions to a lot of things, children also sometimes imitate that. Okay, so if I'm getting angry all the time, and if my son also starts getting angry about similar things, that means somewhere, and then I can't call him emotional. I can't tell him stop having a tantrum, because he'll point out saying, you did the same thing yesterday and it was okay. Why is it not okay? And I've been asked that question many times. It's okay for you to cry. It's okay for you to scream. He says, why not me? So another thing is to see as parents, what can we change about our behavior also. But Amrita, I love your answer about the wound. It's going to stay with me for some time.
Yeah. I hope, Pankaj, that solved your issue. Bela, can you see the next question?
Yeah, I'll just share. It's my child is 10 years old, and as you said, I let her do whatever. Please, I can't three her, ma'am. Is written. But how I'm concerned? How do you I bring her up? Specific skill development. I am really not able to know what is she good at. I feel she is a good at dance, but when I tell her that you can join a dance class, she is not ready. She just don't want to get committed. Please, if you can guide me or help me to change the way of thinking, if I'm wrong, thank you.
Amrita.
This is by
Okay,
Avni Kothari.
her question basically, Avni's question is, her child is 10 years old and she's concerned because she wants to build her skill development. Now, she's not sure at how good she is, at what she's good at. So she feels she's good at dance and she's telling her join a dance class, but her daughter's not ready because she doesn't want to be committed. So can you guide me on the way I'm thinking? Does anyone want to answer it? Kavita?
I feel like you need to give her some more time. She's only 10 years old. That's the way I would look at it. Maybe she needs to figure out, she might like watching dance, but maybe she does not like, actually dancing. So can you give her some more time to figure it out? See, there's no hurry. She's only 10 years old, yeah. So I would say wait one more year, let her develop her skills. Now they're going to be spending a lot of time at home. You'll be watching her a lot. Keep track of it. I mean, that's all I could say, Amrita. For me, 10 years old is not a time to kind of figure out everything that you're good at or not good at. Of course, unless you have a special skill, say of singing, and you're really good at it, yes, go put her in a class and hone that skill, put her in so that future she can be in Saregama or whatever. But otherwise, give children time to grow.
That's a little aspirational, no?
Yeah.
Saregama direct.
No, some kids like start singing at 4 years old and they come on Saregama. I've heard all these stories, so that's why it came up as an example.
Bela, anything you need to say?
Not really. Is the question answered? I don't know. Is she satisfied with the answer? Avni?
No. Let me put in my bit of
Sure, please do.
Yeah. So, Avni, really, I get your concern because when children today are 10 years old, they're in so many different things, and when you're seeing your child over there not going to classes, or you're confused about where she's going to go, what she's going to like, and how do you guide her as a parent? I really get where you are at. All right. And you're not in a wrong place. I also want you to understand that your child is an individual by herself. She is as confused. Now, the way you can get your child interested in other things is also by showing interest yourself. So you really want her to join the dance class? My advice is you join the dance class. Let her watch you over there. If she finds it interesting enough and she wants to copy those steps, she will come and join you. Invite her into your kitchen when you're cooking, and see if that is something she is enjoying. If you want to play a game, you want her to play a game, play the game with her. Get somebody else and play with her. Make it fun, make it exciting, make it like you're missing out on something if you're not doing this. She's 10 years old. Your excitement is going to pass on. You will never know because she will never know. She's only 10. You are the parent. You're the one who's supposed to guide her. So take the initiative. Do this. And if your child follows 2 steps correctly, tell her, wow, you could follow 2 steps correctly. If that is motivating her to do 2 more steps and tell you one day, I want to join that class, you got it. Maybe she wants to be in the kitchen with you. Maybe she wants to learn something else. But you will only know, Avni, once you make her try everything. And when you make her try, just make it exciting, make it fun, make it something that she want to do, something you want to do, and you would want to involve your child. And I think that should work. So try it out and see.
I think the mother is saying that she knows the child is good at dance, but maybe the child is not sure about herself yet. So give her some time, like how Kavita also mentioned, give her some time, let her discover what she likes. And of course, like Amrita also said, to involve her with the activities. Mother joins the class first, then you take over. Child can watch you enjoying the activity. That also is a very good suggestion.
There's this question here. Maybe I would love for one of you to talk about it. What do you do when a child lies sometimes? Because I do not, I really don't have an answer. I have dealt with it in my own way when my children were growing up. But is there any rules that you follow?
First of all, what
Yeah.
leads the child to lie? The
Okay.
child has definitely observed the parent lying or somebody lying. He was always learning from the environment around him. So that is what is leading him to lying, first of all. So let's be careful when we are near our children. I in fact had a talk recently that call comes for a mother. Mother doesn't want to answer the call. She tells the child, "Tell auntie I'm sleeping."
Absolutely.
So the mother is telling the child to lie. So child is learning that itself. So initially, don't create circumstances the child really needs to lie, I would say to the parents. And when the child is lying, of course, what you can do is ask him to think about what he has said. Is it correct? What does he feel? Could he have said it some other way? So have that conversation with the child. Say, I know about what you are doing. You have lied to me, but you think about it and own up yourself. I know what the truth is. I would like you to own up from that. That is what I would feel. Amrita, if you want to add on something to that.
I remember when my child lied to me, and I blew my lid. I got so upset. How could you lie? It's not fair. It's not right. When I think back now, you know what I should have done? I should have sat down and said, did you lie because you think I can't accept the truth?
Absolutely. That's what I
Yeah.
was going to say.
You really wanted something so badly that you had to lie for it? And I think first I would look at myself. Am I being that kind of clearing that I'm allowing people to lie to me, speak badly to me, to whatever that they are doing? And then after that, I would go and see what that child's needs are and understand why that child is lying. And also make it very clear that this is not acceptable behavior. This is not to be done.
And
And
also
sometimes,
another side, yeah, go ahead, Taylor.
sometimes I feel the child is lying because of fear of punishment.
Could be.
That is what makes the child lie.
And also, no, I think when we as parents are so busy, sometimes children come and tell us something and we don't pay attention. And they get away with it the first time. And then it becomes a habit. Mummies, when you know how children come and talk to you when you're the most busiest, right? Whether you're in a meeting or when you're cooking and they say something, and somewhere you know that it's not adding up, but then you say, "Ha, chalta hai, it's a small thing, let them." So it becomes a habit. The lies become bigger and bigger. And that's what I did. I didn't pay attention to the cues that my son was giving me that he's lying. I should have known. So I'll tell you, my son in college, the first one, the day before his final year BBA exam, he didn't get his hall ticket. I was shocked. I mean, he's supposed to finish, go off to London, blah, blah, blah. And you know why? Because he had 5% attendance. 5. What was I doing as a parent? My husband, we were shocked. What were we doing? My husband was busy with his work. And, I knew there were so many signs he was not going to college. I knew it. And it got easier and easier for him to lie. This teacher didn't come. But every day he was sitting in his friend's house right near my office. He was right there playing video games. 3 years he did that. 5% attendance. Because I was not a very present parent. Like I was saying, our presence should be that we should pick up the cues when children are lying. And even if they're not lying, if the truth is not coming out, you can see signs, but you have to pay attention. That means you have to give that much more time. You have to have conversations. How was your day in college? I never asked him even once. Because I just said, oh God, he's a teenager. He's going to college. So I think parents have to be more conscious of what's happening with their children, especially, like I said, teenager. They get away with murder. They're very good at it.
Okay, can we see more questions? Bella, can you see any more
Yes,
questions?
there's
I'm
a
finding it
question
rough.
by Karthik. He says that the kids get overly influenced by one or two of their friends. How can we coach the kid to develop a sense of judgment of their own? This is pure influences basically. So how can he?
Amrita is expert in that.
Yes, Amrita, over to you.
Kavita, you want to say something?
No, you
I'll
go
be
ahead because
answering.
I mean, see, you're giving it from a very academic point of view because this is something that you deal with. So I will add if I want to.
Yeah. So I think, this sense of judgment is when you start giving children that choice right from when they're 2 years old. Choose which clothes you want to wear, choose where you want to go, choose the food you want to eat. So when a child learns to make decisions, if a child has everything always told to him, do this, do this, do this, do that, then the child doesn't really make any decisions. Then the child is a follower and the child doesn't think. So when a child is a follower, he's listening to everybody and picking up the instruction he wants to listen to. But we don't want children who are followers. We want children who are leaders out here. Start making your children leaders right from the day when they're very, very young, and think, why do I want to do this? So when the question or the peer influence comes out there, and that child is thinking, really, why do I want to do this? Do I want to do it because they want me to? And also another very, very important thing is the culture of your family. So my son started eating non-vegetarian food. I'm a vegetarian and I brought him up as a vegetarian. I didn't know, but one day he started eating all under peer influence. And he came up to me and told me, I really want to tell you the truth that I've been eating non-vegetarian food and I've been under, my friends eat and this, that. And I sat him down and I said, perfectly all right. You're old enough to decide for yourself. And you've surely thoughtfully made that decision, of why you want to eat non-veg. You realize what you're doing. And he showed me so much backup that he had done on this, that how all those chickens would have died anyway, and this would have happened, that would have happened. It was an informed choice. Now, I don't agree with the choice because I'm still a vegetarian and I'm not influenced by what he's doing and all the backup and the feedback that he showed me. But what I liked was he had made his decision not because someone told him, but because he had researched on it. He was satisfied with what he liked. And now he's made this choice. Now, that kind of child, that will make a choice in other decisions also sensibly. But this happens when you start giving them the right to make choices and don't give them so many instructions.
Absolutely.
That's the thing, I think, when they learn to judge and they make, also your culture of your house, if you're all vegetarians, they will try to be, or they will think, or if you're all smokers, then you can't tell them don't smoke because their peers are doing it. It's easier to go into the flow. It's also what they find acceptable and not acceptable according to family standards.
Very true.
No, absolutely. I think at certain points it becomes very difficult, Karthik, to break these influences. As I had to deal with the older one. He had some bad influences, 9th, 10th standard. That's when I was not paying attention also. And before I knew it, it was too late. It was too late for me to get those influences out of his life. I don't know. I think it was a blessing for us that having failed, having done a lot of things wrong, he learned a lot of lessons in life, which taught him that he has to make better decisions, make better friends. And you are the average of the peer group that you hang out with. I have two children. Like Vikram's peer group, he was the leader. He was always the one front ending everything, focused on studies, focused on achieving, focused on everything. And there was Aditya, who was the other extreme. But the lessons he learned from failing, for Aditya, has made him one of the most strongest human beings I know today. He can kind of deal with anything. But I'm lucky that he came out of all these influences and now he's a leader in what he does. Like Amrita said, we need to teach those leadership skills from the beginning. Very important, and communication is a huge part of it. Having those crucial conversations with your daughter or son about why they're doing certain things, being there for them is so important. That's when they start thinking that growth mindset. Why am I doing this? Why am I hanging out with this person? Why am I, smoking or drinking when, behind my parents' back? Is it right? Can I go and have a conversation with them? Keep the doors open. That's where that little bit of friendship and open door policy works a lot. Okay.
I agree totally. I agree totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, move on to the
Bella,
next
you'll take the
question.
next question.
Yes, I'll just do that. It's by an anonymous person. There's no name mentioned, but he says that during these tough times, when parents are impacted financially and emotionally, how are they supposed to hide their feelings and raise their children? I don't see the need of hiding the feelings.
Yeah, exactly. You can't.
I,
That's the reality. Again, it comes back to having those crucial conversations with your family. That should become the culture. We are spending 24 bar 7 with each other. And it's good to sit down and have a conversation about how it is affecting your family life, where you need to cut back, what expenses need to go, and how the family can pitch in. All these things become very important. And you can start with a 10-year-old by giving them more chores. I don't know. I've seen a lot of my friends doing that, with their children, getting them more involved in the family. I think all of us now know more about each other than we ever knew as a family. I mean, some of the conversations, we have with each other is about, even we go to the extent of, writing a will. Those kind of conversations we are having now because life has become that way. Otherwise, I would never have had a conversation about inheritance or writing a will, or what is there, how much money do we have, how long can we live like this, what if I lose my job, can we, how long can we sustain? And these are conversations I think we should start having now. It's a great opportunity to open out your heart. Amrita?
I really feel that you have these conversations, but there's a way to have these conversations. So, when we have a conversation not talking that this is the pit. We have a conversation that this is a mountain we need to climb. All right. So when you have a conversation like that, children don't get worried and panicky. And remember, you're transmitting your emotions. So every time you have a conversation with anyone, so when I'm having conversation with all of you, I'm excited and I'm happy to have this conversation out here. Similarly, when you're sitting out there with your children, you need to state what it is. This is the situation. I don't have a job anymore, right? I was getting so much and this was what I was giving towards everything. So right now, what do we do till I get a job? All right. Can anyone give me any ideas? So now children start thinking that, okay, we need ideas in the family and I've got a brain and I can contribute. So my idea is maybe, we start doing this and we don't have this maid over here, or we start doing this and we don't do that. And that's when a child is able to look at the mountain up and how the mountain can be climbed, right? And also, can you give me ideas now? Where do I apply? I've got these 4-5 companies. I'm making my resume. I want all of you to listen to me because this is where I am. Can you say something else about me? And talk. Parents learn to appreciate what their father is doing to find another job. It's not an expectation that you go find another job quickly now. I am doing this. These are the steps I'm taking. And when a father, parent, or mother is talking to the child and saying, I am doing this and I am writing down, this is what I've done, or this is what I'm doing, a child also has that feeling of appreciation for a parent. It's not only about you appreciating your child, it's about your child also appreciating you as a parent. I remember I was studying last year. I just finished an exam. And I was sitting down at 4 in the morning and I was weeping because there was too much to study. And my son came and sat next to me and he said, Maggie. I said, yeah. And we sat, ate Maggie. And I said, I will never force you to study again. He's saying, no, mom, I am only studying because I'm seeing you study. So I guess, they are seeing you. You are the brave one over there. You are the one who is climbing those mountains. Really set an example. Take this as an opportunity to set your example. That there will be pits in everyone's life. We only have to go up. Let's find our way up. And we are all together as a unit.
And isn't it such a joy when your children come to that age where they appreciate, you doing something. I get a real kick when, my son comes up to me and says, I'm really proud of what you did. I know it was very difficult, not easy decision, but you took it and you stuck by it. And I'm like, okay, I did something right as a mother finally. So it's a big thing.
We'll move on to the next question by Preeti. She has a 13-year-old daughter, and she wants to know how she can build her self-esteem and confidence.
I think one of the things we already spoke about, I mean, not one, we spoke about many things, accepting them for who they are, definitely giving them that unconditional love. Somebody who has a low self-esteem most times is having an insecurity of some kind. So you have to go back, Preeti, and figure out what is it that she's not sure about herself and build her self-esteem over there. Okay, do that little bit of appreciation every day. Give her tasks that she does very well. Okay, she does very well, and give her more of that. So, she starts feeling good about herself. She develops her self-confidence. If she's really good at math, give her 10 math problems, but don't give her, give her English homework if English is a weakness and then say you did badly. Start developing her self-esteem by giving her math problems and telling her you did a fabulous job. Or maybe say, can you teach your sibling or somebody else how to do something that she's good at? Or say, can you teach me how you came up with this answer because I suck at math? So build her confidence, accept her for who she is. And like I said, praise, appreciation, and have conversations with her to understand where she's coming from. That's very important. Creating a bridge between you and her. Don't ignore it, because if you already know that she's having a problem with her confidence, this is the time for you to take those steps to work on it. I think you will do it, but like I said, find what is good in her and let her do more of that. Then the negatives or whatever you feel she's not good at will automatically improve. Praise the good. Focus on the positive.
Preeti, I also think what is self-esteem? Self-esteem is confidence, right? It's something where you feel good about yourself. So just like Kavita said, find things where she feels good about herself and work on that. So just build up the good.
I would say build on the strength as well. Whatever is the strength of your child, build on that instead of focusing more on the weakness of the child.
And the weakness will automatically take care of itself. Once she starts feeling good, she'll start working on it on her own.
True. The next question is by Soumya. She says that she's got twins, a boy and a girl. It was very easy to treat them alike when they were growing up. But at 23, I want to differentiate for obvious reasons. But I am met with resistance than acceptance. Any thoughts about that?
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Soumya, why would you want to not? I didn't understand. You want to differentiate now. Why would you want to differentiate over there? They're so unique anyway. So you're differentiating between whom? Between two unique individuals. So you have to just look at them as whole and complete by themselves, and each one is an individual. So you talk to them as two separate entities, even if they're twins, right? They eat separately, they sleep separately, they work separately, they study separately, whatever. They may be having their own friends or different likes and dislikes. Just treat them for the human beings they are, the individuals they are. So, I mean, really don't get into both of them have to be the same. Because I don't think I would like to have another double like me. I would like to be unique and individualistic like myself. And so would you, na? So we just have separate kids and just love both of them separately. Anyone has to say anything to Soumya? Does anyone have to say anything else to Soumya? Can you hear, Kavita?
Now I can hear. No, I'm okay. Soumya is a friend of mine. I'll talk to her.
Great.
Anyone else?
I think those
Any
were the
other
questions.
questions?
No, I can't see any more questions because they're all lost in the chat right now. So maybe
If
you
you
can
have any
start.
more questions, just put them in the question and answer, please.
Yes.
I
Meanwhile, I
also
think you
want to
can
thank
start with your
everyone.
tips.
I mean, okay,
I
Abhishek.
won't let you.
Abhishek has a question. Two of them.
Great. Please,
Abhishek is somebody I know. And I just want to say that, two of them listening, Abhishek and Aparna, are a couple who have a 4-year-old son, Anirudh. And the amazing way they brought up this child is, when I watch those, I was talking about conversations, right? The kind of conversations that they have been having with this child is just amazing. The questions they ask him, the answers he gives, the questions he asks them, he is way beyond his age, but they started this kind of conversations with him, I think, when he was 1 year old. So conversations, asking children the right questions has a great impact on them. So even if your child is 2 or 3, start asking them the right questions. Don't blindly give them instructions. Ask them questions. Tell them why you're doing something. Makes a difference.
I think Abhishek wants to know that how can he teach empathy to his children?
Get a dog.
Get a dog.
I don't know.
I think you teach empathy by modeling.
Sorry?
Yes,
Empathy is
be role model.
only taught by modeling. That's it.
Absolutely. If you
You know,
want
and
kind
also in your conversation with the child, when a child is feeling hurt, you sit with the child and you say, how are you feeling? I know how you're feeling. I can feel that you're very hurt right now. So your child knows that you are feeling what he's feeling. And this is the only way you teach empathy. It's through modeling. You are what you see, you become what you speak, and you see, and everything. All of this is there. And if you get a dog, you learn unconditional love.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I became a better parent after I got a dog. I mean, it's not a forum to speak over here, but we had this conversation about wanting to teach my dog how to shake his hand. And we decided we should get a trainer. And the trainer came one day and the dog, the trainer gave him a treat and he didn't listen, and then gave him another treat and that dog didn't listen. And then I told the trainer, you can go. And I just sat and spoke to my husband and I said, really, how important is it for him to shake his hand? And I think we should do that with our children. How important is it for them to do this? And once we get that, I think you're there, because it's really not important. Many things that we give so much importance to are not important.
I think, Abhishek, kindness, empathy, everything is imbibed from the environment. So like, Amrita said, it's how your child sees you. I know today, Vikram has his own, he runs a community to take care of stray animals. And we go around feeding people, we go around feeding animals, even in the pandemic. And so many people, I'll be walking through the stores, and I've lived here for so long, people know me and they'll say, your children are just like you. They're always doing for others. They care about others. You've done a good job. Not that I asked them, but they told me. So I think it is by modeling, it is by them watching you, and you have to tell them, sometimes you have to teach them. Like, when I used to go in the cab, I always tipped the cab driver a lot more than normal people do. I used to have conversations with them about their children. How is your life? And this is something that I have taught my children, that everybody is an individual. They have a story, they have a life, and they want to be heard. So ask people questions, care for them unconditionally. Doesn't matter if he's a shopkeeper, is the person working in the site. They all need somebody to just say, how are you doing today? Do you need anything? And that's how you teach children empathy and kindness and generosity and all these qualities.
Very, very well said. Role model and very, very, very good. So we'll move on to the next question by Anita Bhutani. She says, how to tackle rebellion and defiance in girls in their late teens?
Amrita, you want to take that?
I've never had girls. I really, Amrita, you probably know, you have a daughter, so maybe you can.
So anyway, it's not a question of girl or a boy. Why are they rebelling? Anita, that's the question. The question is, why are they rebelling?
Can I give the answer?
Please give the answer.
See, most of the children rebel because sometimes they want attention. Okay, attention seeking is usually having a tantrum. Go ahead. You go ahead.
My whole question is, Anita, you need to ask them, why are you rebelling? And according to you, what is rebellion? So if your daughter, you're saying late teens, maybe she wants to wear a short dress and then that's not acceptable with you, but it is acceptable with others. But that is her peer group. Now, again, you need to build that bridge of being the friend and understanding where they are coming from, where are they going, what is acceptable, who are they going with, is it safe, is it not safe, is it allowed, why is it not allowed? You know, there are so many things I used to say no to, which I say yes to now, because I ask myself a question, why do I have a problem with this? And when I ask myself, why do I have a problem with this? It is 90% of the time is because I was not allowed to do it.
Yeah.
So there is something wrong with it. But if there is nothing wrong with it, and if I'm asking myself the question and I don't get the right answer, and I find there is something wrong with it, then I sit with my child and say, you know what? I really think there's a problem if you do this because it's going to be inviting this kind of trouble. And I am talking to you from a safety perspective, or I'm talking to you from, what is my perspective and my backdrop for having this problem or not allowing you. So there are so many things I used to say no to. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But there is an age now, you're late teens, you're old enough. Is it my problem? Was it because I was never allowed to wear those short clothes that I don't think you should wear? Or I was never allowed to go out that you should go? What is the problem? So figure out what the problem is and you will get your answer, Anita.
And also, you know, like kids today have data points for everything. You know, like when my children did not want to do engineering, they did full research why they shouldn't do engineering, because my husband really wanted them to be engineers. He said, you become an engineer, then you do what you want. And they said, so they came up with all the statistics, how many engineers commit suicide in a year, you know, these gory things. So we said, oh, okay, fine. You know, and we had to accept that they will not be engineers. Very difficult, especially for my husband, to accept that both the boys wanted to get into business and not into engineering. Just like they get the data points, what I do is, if I don't want my children to do something, I also do my own research. I also think, why is it, like Amrita said, why is it that I don't want them to do something? And I will tell them, these are my reasons. I feel this will happen. These could be the consequences. And as a mother, as a friend, it's my duty to tell you. But now, if you still want to go ahead and do it, and if something happens, now this is where discipline comes. You have to become responsible and accountable for your behavior. Don't come to me and said, what should I do now? And don't tell me to hide it from the father. You know, usually girls will say, don't tell daddy. I said, no, I'm giving you that this is the consequences. Now, if it happens, something goes wrong, you have to go to the father to talk about it, not to the mother. So I usually keep that very clear with them. And many a time they've seen my point of view and said, okay, maybe you're right for a change, and they don't do it. So it's a.
So we have a next question by Parvati. She says she's got two daughters, 2 years and 11 years. Could you give her some tips for making their day fresher and creative? Balancing between both the kids together is very tough sometimes. They have great fun at times, but sometimes it gets frustrating as well. So can you please share how she can balance between a 2-year-old and a 11-year-old child?
Amrita, you will be the expert.
Parvati, I feel you. 2 years and 11 years. I can imagine. Really, you have both your hands full. All right. The needs of an 11-year-old are very different from the needs of a 2-year-old. And I'm sure the 2-year-old is taking up a big chunk of your time, because now I understand that this child needs you for all the physiological needs that they have, you know, dressing up, eating, sleeping, wearing their clothes. But your child who is 11 years needs you for other things. So you really need to first enroll your 11-year-old child as to why you're spending so much time with your 2-year-old. Because your 2-year-old cannot do these things herself. and actually get your 11-year-old child to be your partner over here to look after your 2-year-old, because your 2-year-old is going to take up a big chunk of your time, and your 11-year-old really needs you at this time. She's entering the teenage, she's developing a self concept like we speak about, and this child is emulating her mother and modeling her mother at every stage. You are her role model. So I really want you right now to enroll your 11-year-old. Why don't you all do things together? Why don't you all have a game all three of you all can play, or something, or have your younger child observe while you play with her, and she can also just listen. So tell us, say a story. Even if your 2-year-old doesn't understand, she's sort of understood. She's sort of there with you all. So I think you will have to do that. And I think every morning you'll have to give yourself an auto suggestion that you are a wonderful mother.
Very
Because
true.
it's not an easy job.
Amrita,
Just take your hand, pat yourself on your back.
it's a challenge. I had a question from a friend, Amrita. She says, what is a good age to start disciplining children?
You want me to take that? Anyone else wants to take it?
Work with a lot of
Take it,
children.
perfect.
All right. I want to tell you, if you have to go for what is the age you said?
Yeah, and how do you inculcate discipline into your child?
So, when your child is 1 year old and 1 year old, your child doesn't understand too much, because at that time your child is sort of just understanding the world and the family and surroundings, and that's the time you make sure that the child knows what are acceptable behaviors and not acceptable behaviors. You don't take your plate and throw it on the ground. So I had a very big dressing table in my room when my child was small, and I used to keep all my lipsticks and my perfumes and all over there. It was all sort of set out. And I remember when I got my baby, everyone told me, you need to pick up everything. But my mother told me, no, you don't pick up everything. This is the way it is. And your child needs to understand this is the way it is. So every time my son went over there, I would hold his hand, put my hand on top of his, and tell him, this is Mama's lipstick. She wears it when she goes out. We are not going to touch it. We're going to play with our toys, which are kept over here, or whatever. So you have a conversation. The third or fourth time, my child, who was walking around at that time, was barely able to stand, used to go over there and tell me, no,
It's okay.
like you're not supposed to touch it. Like I've understood. And then when he would say no, I would say, that is so clever of you. You have understood. You don't have to play with this and you have to play with that. So when you do things like this, that child understands that this is behavior that you're reinforcing. That this is acceptable behavior. This is a behavior which my mother gets very happy with when I do. Right? So keep reinforcing. Now, I also want to ask whoever asked the question, how long does it take you to get ready when you go out? If you're going out for a wedding, it could take anything from between 15, 20 minutes at least to maybe 2 hours, depending on what you're doing. How many times do you actually tell your child what is required of him or what you expect from him before you go out? Not even 1 minute. And then you expect your child to go to someone's house and be totally well behaved. That is not the way. You take 20 minutes for yourself. You explain to your child, not for 20 minutes, but of course, once, twice, 3 times, 10 times, 20 times till your child has learned that behavior. We are going to be going out someplace. Over there, they have a dog or they have this or they have that. We can't pull that dog's tail because the dog feels very, very bad and he starts crying. Or we have to go and sit on the sofa because they don't have to spoil their house. They've got a lovely clean house and we're going to make sure that we keep it the way it is. This is what they expect of us. The child may not understand once, may not understand twice, may not understand 10 times, but you will continue till your child has understood. And that's how you teach acceptable behaviors. And of course, you model that behavior.
Absolutely.
You don't do that in your house, that you throw everything around and then after that you go to someone's house, you expect your child to be throwing things around, no? Because this is what he's seen.
I've noticed
So
some
discipline
parents
is
don't want
taught.
to say no to the child for anything.
Yeah.
They're throwing things around. Parents don't open a single mouth. Doesn't make sense. You should discipline the child when they're small itself.
I have seen that a lot in restaurants where where children are allowed to climb on the table with their shoes on, even if they're 1 year old. And I'm like thinking, but
It's not done.
that's
It's
not
you
done.
need to
That
teach
shows,
acceptable.
like
Like
you
you're
said,
teaching other things, no? You're teaching ABCs, you're teaching everything. This is society rules. These are behaviors that are accepted by society. So we have to teach them.
I think it's just now again it goes back to it's a reflection of, if you see behavior like that, you know how things are at home.
Very true.
And it always reflects back on the culture in your own house. So I think if we want to change how our children are on the outside, we have to start looking at what's happening inside the house. How is the situation?
Absolutely.
And a lot of discipline, once we start disciplining ourselves against negative behavior and attitudes, I think that will come to our children. Now, shall I go ahead and share what things not to do, or are we on for some more time? Sorry.
We
We're
actually crossed
already
that time.
40 minutes ahead of time. If anyone has questions, we'll take them.
My
But I
dog
think
wants
now
to
everyone knows what to do.
my dog wants to come downstairs. Vikram is like, Newton does not want to sit with me anymore. So I said, okay.
And quickly share the tips quickly, then that will be better, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are things not to do from my point of view, from my experience, to be a bully to your children. Parents often unconsciously end up criticizing or making fun of their child's weight, complexion, their behavior. You might be thinking that you're doing it for fun, but bullying really has a serious impact on your child. It is known to cause anxiety, obsessive compulsive behaviors, and sometimes even depression, which I know if Amrita was given a chance, she would talk more about, but I'll go to the next one. Comparing your child. Most common parenting mistake, right? Where parents compare a child to his or her friends, siblings, neighbors, whoever it is. If somebody is doing better than that, the child you have, you compare. What we forget in the process is that comparing a child to criticize him or can have an impact on his self-esteem again, his confidence, and make them feel very incompetent. Already, they're dealing with so much peer pressure, and if a parent is also comparing them, they really give up. So rather than restoring to comparison, track your child's personal journey of achievements and celebrate even the smallest of victories in a day. You will find 5 things to celebrate in a day if you just look for it. Next thing, which we've already spoken about, modeling behavior, preaching without practicing. You can tell your children you can open up there. If you go to Google, you'll get everything what to do with your children, right? But if you're not doing it, no use. Many parents have the habit of giving long, unending lectures, which we all do, but we never follow them. Kids take their parents as the most influential role models, and thus, most often, like we've been talking with every example, imitate them. Whether you like it or not, they're watching you, they imitate you. And as you grow older, these behaviors will become more prominent, and you'll say, shit, where did they learn that from? It's from me. So please be careful of that. Like eating junk food, right? We tell our kids not to eat junk food, but then we order McDonald's and fries and we'll be eating, but we tell our kids it's not good for you. So what kind of example are you setting to your children? The best kind of parent you can be is to lead by example. Then another thing which is very common is you have to raise your child to become not what you want it to be, but what they want to be, right? Like these engineers are telling, right? We wanted our children to be engineers, but that's not what they wanted. And I'm so glad my children stood their ground and said, this is what we are doing. And it took some time, but we accepted that, okay, this is what they want to do. We told them, one of my sons, Vikram, younger one, he in first PU or second PU, they formed a group, 6 of them, doing filmmaking. They were all very interested in filmmaking. They started charging people. They made short films. So my husband and I encouraged them by saying, let's, make it a company. Why don't we register it? So my son came to us at second PO and said, I want you all to know that, I might want to be a filmmaker. And we both looked at him like, okay, we thought it was a hobby. So he said, this is an option I'm keeping open. I also might want to be a lawyer. I also might want to be a businessman. So we said, okay, fine. He even applied for film school and all that. But in the end, I think having registered this business, he realized he wants to be an entrepreneur. And in the end, that's what he took up. But I'm saying encourage your children to explore the options, especially at an age when they can reason what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is not good. Here's Newton. So please encourage your children. And each parent should realize our children is unique and different. Let them excel in what is right for them. Let them follow their dreams, let them fall, be there for them, pick them up and put them back on their feet. Another thing which I did very much of is yelling. If you think yelling at your children is a way to discipline him, know that it involves the risk of increased levels again of anxiety in your child, and it affects their overall development if they continuously hearing a parent yelling at them. For me, I got feedback when I moved into this house 9 years ago, and some relatives stay around, and they told my sister-in-law, oh, we know Kavita's moved into her house. So she said, how? Saying, because we can hear her yelling all the time. That was a slap on my face. I'm like, this is the kind of impression my whole neighborhood had about me. That's when I stopped. So always remember, when you want to yell, think, if people were listening and watching me, would I do this? And if the answer is no, don't do it. And next thing is expecting your children to reach all these big goals that you didn't reach. Again, it's the same thing, right? Expecting perfection from your children. Not going to happen. You're not perfect. Your children will not be perfect. Embrace them, accept them for who they are, and give them love for that. Then, most important, let your children fail. Please let them fail and let them get up on their own sometimes. As soon as a child falls, we want to pick them up. I know when my son did really badly in 10th standard, and I wanted to get him a seat still in a good college. And my mentor told me, don't do that. He's fallen. Okay. Now let him get a seat in a college that is not good. That's the only way he's going to learn a lesson. Because if every time he does something wrong, and if you are just filling that void with good, he's never going to learn resilience. He's never going to build mental strength, because he knows his mom and dad are going to pick him up and then give him the next big gift. So please let your children fail. It's okay. It's better that they fail with you when they're with you than when they grow up. So let them make their mistakes, learn their lessons, build their resilience, so that later in life, when they fall, they know how to get up on their own. You're not going to be there always to pick them up. So, my dear friends, that's the last thing. Let your children fail. That's a very important lesson as parents we have to learn. It's not about what can I do for you? What can you do for yourself now? I've done everything I have. You figure out your life next. I can say that because my children are older. A lot of parents here are young. These are just some things for you to remember the next time that you do something that you're not supposed to do. And thank you, Amrita and Bela, for letting me share a few tips from my side with all of you.
Like, we would like to thank you for pouring your heart out with all your experience that you had with your motherhood. So thank you for being here on our ABCD show and really sharing all your experiences with all the viewers. And I'm sure there's a lot of takeaway for everyone. Let's reflect and see, and of course, make your journal so you know where you're doing right, where you're going wrong. So please continue making your journals and noting everything down. And please do like our ABCD Facebook page, also our YouTube channel. And of course, if you want to join the ABCD Thought Leaders group, please do that also. So bye for now, and see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Kavita. It was super. All right.
Absolutely.
And thank you all the viewers for being with us for nearly 2 hours. Really? That's a lot.
You said 45 minutes, so I had
know.
Really. But thanks a lot. It was super, really nice. Thank you, all of you all. We really wish you happy parenting. And that's the key word, happy parenting. Enjoy parenting. And thanks, Kavita.
I'm going to see you on Passion and Purpose next. You better.
Waiting.
You were supposed to be on my show first, and you conned me into coming here now. So we'll change.
Wonderful.
Thank you,
passionate
babe.
about
So
this.
nice to meet you.
Bye. Take care. See you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. See you. I hope some of you are coming in tomorrow because we have a special show tomorrow. All right. We have a storytelling course and we have a grand finale. So please do come in. Find out all the details from the ABCD FB page. We're all there. Bye-bye.
Thank you.